everybody, it's me, Zach. This is Potato, and welcome back to our channel. Hey everybody, it's me, Zach, and I am back again today to talk about the critically acclaimed TLC reality TV show. Future Emmy-nominated, future Tony, Oscar. We have an EGOT on our hands, okay? We got a whole entire EGOT on our hands. I'm here to talk about our favorite girls from the 1,000-pound sisters. Yes, specifically today, I'm going to be talking about Amy and Tammy and Amy's relationship with Michael and maybe a little bit of Tammy's relationship with Caleb. And we're going to chat about all kinds of things. But here's the deal. Usually I come here and we talk about hee ha ha funny things. And I don't know that today's video is particularly hee or ha ha or funny. In fact, I know it's not. So just bear with me. I think it's important that I share the news and things like that on my channel because, as you know, if you've been here for a while, I tend to cover all the things that happen to Amy and Tammy, whether it's on the internet or on their TV show, and I feel like if I just didn't say anything or didn't cover this topic, we'd get to a potential season 5 of the show, and people would be like, Zach, all of this happened and you didn't say anything? We didn't know about it? And so, I think it's important that we just talk about it, share about it, and things like that so that folks know. And we could talk more about other reasons why it's important that I share this news after I share the news. Oh my god, I'm just talking in riddles and enigmas and puzzles and vaguely. I should really just say what we're here to talk about. So as you know, a few weeks ago, several weeks ago at this point, I don't really know the timeline in my head right now, The Sun came out with a report that Amy had separated from her husband Michael Halterman, and that was pretty much at the time all the article said. It just that they had separated, that Amy was living with Tammy, and so were the two kids, and that was basically the extent of the article. And I had shared that news during one of the episode recaps that I did instead of making a whole video about it. I am making a whole video about this today because there are no new episodes, so that's your whole dedicated video to this subject today. And I didn't really want to report on it without checking in with Amy first, just because there have been a history of tabloid-esque news sites on the internet that just post the most clickbaity titles. But I will say, in the history of covering this show myself, The Sun has actually come out with many stories that have all been reliable and affirmed by Amy herself to me. I remember in season 3, one of those articles, it was at the end of season 3, an article came out where it said that Amy wanted to take time away from the show, film less, whoever, whatever. And when I talked to Amy, she had told me that that was all true at the time. And similarly, when the first article came out that said that Amy had separated from Michael and moved in with Tammy, I asked Amy about it in the DMs on Instagram, and Amy did tell me and confirm at the time that she had in fact separated. So The Sun is a pretty reliable source, at least in regards to this show, it seems, because it seems like, they are coming out with accurate information. I am kind of curious how they get some of this information. I don't know if Amy or somebody close to her and her family is sharing this news and information or what it is. I do have some questions about that because they seem to be on top of some things that you might only know if you lived in the middle of nowhere, Kentucky, with Amy and Tammy and company. And also as a point of clarification, I mentioned in a video a week or two ago that a lot of people were sending me the court filings, the public court filings of Michael filing for divorce from Amy. And I did also confirm, obviously that's true as well, but I didn't really talk about it that much. And I kind of, was a little bit dismissive of sharing too much about it because I was just yeah, we already knew. It was already confirmed that they were separating. But I think, the key part of that is that Michael was filing those divorce filings. I just said filings several times there. So the new article that came out from The Sun, and I'll leave a link in my description box if you want to go read the actual article itself, is called Taking Action. 1,000-Pound Sisters Amy Slaton files emergency protective order against Michael Halterman after accusing him of violence. The article goes on to talk a little bit about what happened between her and Michael. So specifically, they say, according to Kentucky court documents, Amy, 35, filed a protective order on February 28th, just 4 days after making a 911 call claiming Michael, 40, had become violent in their home. I guess that's how The Sun could know. They could just be searching court documents in this case, at least. Court documents or like public 911 calls or whoever it might be. I guess that stuff is probably public and they might have just been searching for it and that's why they're reporting on this stuff. It goes on to say, on February 28th, Amy opened a domestic violence case in Kentucky court against Michael. On the same day, Amy filed an order for emergency protection. The protective order was amended on March 8th to allow Michael to have supervised contact with the children as long as he was accompanied by his mother and sister. And based on the 911 call that happened, it sounds like Amy was claiming that Michael had started throwing things during a heated argument. The argument went down 17 days before Michael filed for divorce in their local Kentucky court. And they were apparently arguing over their split, which is what the officer that responded claimed. Based on that report, it sounds like Amy wanted to separate, but Michael wasn't trying to do that, wasn't about that, and that's what the argument was about. And Amy claimed that Michael eventually became violent and started throwing things while her two kids, Gage and Glenn, were both present in the home. Neither of them were arrested from the altercation, and TLC hasn't shared any other additional information with The Sun's requests for comments. And I feel like it's important for me to bring this up because, one, this will obviously have an impact on any future seasons of 1,000-Pound Sisters. Michael has been a large part of the show since the very beginning. In season 1, we got to see Amy and Michael get married. We've obviously seen the process of them having 2 children together, of buying a new home together, and all sorts of things like that. And I mostly also want to share this, though, because so many people in the comments were making all kinds of assumptions about the type of person Michael is and, like, why Amy should stay in whatever situation she was in. Like, I got a weirdly, surprisingly large number of comments from people on my videos saying, like, Amy can't do much better, like she should just stick with it and work through it and stick by her man and support him. He can't be that bad. A weird number of people who were like, she should be grateful for Michael. Think about all the times that Michael was pushing Tammy around and supporting Tammy back when she couldn't move. And I struggled because at the time I knew some of this. I will be honest that Amy had shared some of this information with me already, and I obviously wasn't going to share that before it was like public knowledge or anything like that. That's not my place to share. But I struggled with it because, first of all, I support women leaving men or people leaving people in their relationships whenever they feel like is right? Because, we don't know the story. Obviously, there was more going on in this story than even just what was shown on the 4th season of 1,000-Pound Sisters. And I think a lot of people were thinking about what they had most recently watched on 1,000-Pound Sisters and applying that to the reason that Amy and Michael were splitting, right? Like, I think they were thinking about the episodes where Michael was clearly not helping out with the kid and thinking that must be the reason that Amy is leaving Michael. And of course, I'm sure that played a big role in it, but obviously, based on, these reports and things like that, there's way more to the story about what is happening between Michael and Amy. And I think that's sometimes important to consider when we're talking about a heavily produced, edited, etc. reality TV show. On my channel, I cover a lot of just YouTubers who vlog themselves and their daily lives and things like that. And when you're a YouTuber, it's a little bit different than being on a reality show. Although I do often make comparisons about how I watch some YouTube vloggers in the same way that I watch and consume a reality television show. But for instance, let's take Amber Lynn Reid for an example. She gets to produce all of her own content, for better or worse, let's be honest there. But she produces all of that. She gets to decide how to edit her videos, what gets included, and what ultimately gets published to her channel. But when you sign up to be on a reality TV show, you obviously get to show up however you want to show up on the days that you're filming for said reality TV show. To some extent, those things are taken out of your hands once you get done filming that, right? Like, there's a whole team of people who are editing that film and that footage, and also a whole team of people who are just like producing the storyline to begin with, right? Like, we've talked a lot in both 1,000 Pound Sisters and 1,000 Pound Besties, where it's clear that the producers have set up certain situations for them and said, like, please be yourself, but we're like manufacturing an experience so that y'all have to react in some kind of way and we can get some entertaining footage for our show. And because of that, it's probably pretty unlikely that any of this, that any of this domestic violence or things like that would be documented or put onto the show, right? Like, realistically, when Amy and Michael are filming together, they're probably going to be filming together in the most positive light for both of them. Although, I mean, granted, we've seen people on these shows not show themselves in the best positive light. I mean, I think Tammy herself is a good example of that. But realistically, they're not going to show these types of things on the show. I do just want to quickly clarify that when I say they, I mean Michael and Amy probably weren't going to show that on the show. I'm sure if it actually happened and it was caught on film, like, TLC would be eating that up and obviously use it on the show. But I feel like when I was watching this back while I was editing that I didn't make that clear. So what I'm saying is that in a realistic world, none of this stuff would probably be something that they would choose to demonstrate while they knew they were filming, if that makes sense. I hope that clears that up in case it wasn't clear enough from what I said prior to editing. Not to mention that some of these things probably started happening even after they stopped filming. I think they stopped filming what we saw of season 4 back in November when Tammy and Caleb got married. And so November 2022 is a long time ago in the span of, I don't know, things that can happen in the world. So I don't really know what I guess I'm trying to say, because, like, I get the fun and the entertainment of, like, speculating about what is happening on our favorite TV shows, our favorite reality TV shows. But I guess this just serves as a reminder that there's probably some other things happening behind the scenes and we're not going to see everything. Now, here's where the Sun article, however, is interesting to me, because obviously those things, you can get some public court records or public police records to see what happened with all of those things, like the 911 call, the court filings, whoever, whatever. But the Sun seems to have talked to an insider from somewhere in Kentucky with them, who said that Amy has been struggling emotionally while continuing to care for both of her kids as a single mom. Amy's been feeling overwhelmed despite the support from her sister, Tammy. And the source also shared that Amy's family has been supportive. And the insider also shared that no one in the family likes Michael. Which, honestly, maybe something else to consider is that Amy's sister Amanda was married to Michael's brother. And we just found out in this most recent season that Amanda recently got a divorce from him. So it seems like both the Haltermans are just like out. On top of that, this insider source seems to have some information about Miss Tammy. They said, meanwhile, Tammy is feeling especially lonely since her husband Caleb Willingham isn't around to help out, as Amy has been crashing at her 2-bedroom home. Caleb has plans to transfer from the Ohio Weight Loss Center to a clinic in Kentucky to be closer to his new wife, although a few obstacles remain in the way. And I think that's interesting that they're noting this stuff about a split potentially happening between Tammy and Caleb, because it was in my recap last week that a lot of people had been asking me what was going on between Tammy and Caleb, because on Instagram it seemed like Tammy had gotten rid of all photos or posts on her main Instagram page related to Caleb. But apparently this source says that tensions are building between Tammy and Caleb because of the distance, despite the fact that they only tied the knot officially in November of 2022. Apparently the issue for Caleb is that he's having issues getting his insurance to cover a transfer to the Kentucky clinic or facility to be closer to Tammy. But overall, Tammy seems to be sad, according to this insider, that her husband's not with her and frustrated that he's not made an effort to move to a facility in Kentucky from Ohio. And apparently they've been arguing because she feels he is not handling the transfer with urgency. So that's another thing to maybe keep in mind, is that since filming ended for season 4, they have also moved Tammy back home, which I think was already apparent from everything I've already said here. But I know at the end of season 4, if you're not keeping up with her on social media, she was still at the Ohio Rehab Facility Center with Caleb. And I'm also curious because I shared a TikTok from Tammy, I don't know, probably towards the beginning of season 4. I'm not exactly sure in the timeline where that happened, where she said that they had only filmed the first 8 episodes of season 4 and that there were still 8 more episodes to film of the season. However, as it's clear, there were 10 episodes of season 4 with no clear plans for more episodes to come out of season 4, unless I'm missing something, because some people in the comments tried to tell me, no, they're coming back with more episodes. But I looked all over the internet to try to find some information about that and couldn't find anything that suggested that there would be more episodes. I think what may be more likely is that they really were still filming and continuing to film, and that whatever they film will be a part of season 5. I think, especially with all of the stuff happening between Amy and Michael, and potentially some division between Tammy and Caleb, that TLC would want to be physically there filming things for a new season. So I'm curious to see what happens. You know, by the time we actually get new episodes of the show, which I imagine will come out at the end of 2023 at the earliest, I think the timeline will probably be very confusing, as we witnessed this past season. They zipped through like 3 months in one episode one time. So I think, you know, it's hard to say what will happen or what we'll see in the future. But I certainly wanted to keep you posted on these developments, because once we get to season 5, which I'm sure there will be, I think we might forget some of this stuff happened. So this will live on forever in my playlist of all the 1000 Pound Sisters content I've ever made on my channel, including before they ever even had their own TLC show. So make sure to go through the playlist and catch up if there's anything that you've missed in the past, I don't know, several years of me covering the Slatons. And otherwise, that's all I have time for today. I hope you all enjoyed today's video. If you're brand new, consider subscribing for more Slaton sister news. Make sure to hit the bell button so you get a notification every single time I post a new video. Make sure to leave me a comment, hit like, click share, and follow me on all my social media, including Twitch, including Cameo, my merch shop, TikTok. I've been uploading Slaton Sister TikToks lately, so go check me out there. And above all else, I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye!